In 2026, the operating system landscape looks calm on the surface. But underneath it is the most intense battle the industry has ever seen. For decades, OS wars were framed as Windows versus macOS, with Linux existing quietly in the background, powering servers, supercomputers, and infrastructure, while being dismissed on the desktop as not ready yet. But something fundamental has shifted. The convergence of privacy crises, AI acceleration, hardware stagnation, cloud dependency fatigue, and user distrust in closed ecosystems has created a moment where one Linux distribution is positioned not just to compete, but to define the future direction of personal and professional computing. This is not a story about Linux finally becoming popular in the way people predicted in the early 2000s. This is a story about Linux winning, because the rules of the game have changed. To understand why 2026 matters, you have to understand what users are actually fighting against. Modern operating systems have become less about empowering users and more about managing them. Automatic updates that cannot be deferred, telemetry that cannot be fully disabled, AI features that analyze personal data by default, accounts that are mandatory for basic functionality, and app ecosystems that increasingly resemble locked marketplaces rather than open platforms. Windows has doubled down on AI integration, making cloud connectivity and data analysis core assumptions of the OS. macOS has continued refining its polished experience, but at the cost of deeper hardware lock-in and limited repairability. Chrome OS remains tied to Google's data-driven ecosystem. Even mobile operating systems have blurred the line between personal devices and surveillance endpoints. In contrast, Linux in 2026 represents something fundamentally different. Not just an alternative, but an escape hatch. And among the hundreds of Linux distributions, one stands out as uniquely positioned to win the future. A distro that balances privacy, usability, performance, and long-term sustainability without compromising on freedom. This distro is not winning because it is niche or ideological. It is winning because it aligns with where the world is heading, not where it has been. The first reason this Linux distro is winning is trust. Trust has become the most valuable currency in technology, and it is something proprietary operating systems are rapidly losing. In the past, users tolerated invasive practices because the benefits seemed worth it. Convenience, compatibility, and familiarity outweighed concerns about data collection. But in 2026, people are more aware than ever of how their data is used, sold, and analyzed. AI systems trained on user behavior, keystrokes, files, and voice input have made privacy no longer an abstract concern, but a daily reality. When your operating system is also a data pipeline, the question becomes unavoidable. Who is this machine really working for? The Linux distro positioned to win the future makes a clear promise. The system works for you. Not for a corporation, not for advertisers, and not for remote servers you do not control. Telemetry is opt-in, not opt-out. System updates are transparent and user-controlled. Source code is open and auditable, meaning security researchers, governments, and individuals can verify what the OS is doing, rather than trusting marketing claims. In an era where trust us is no longer enough, verifiability becomes power. Another critical factor is performance in a world of aging hardware. By 2026, the pace of consumer hardware innovation has slowed. CPUs are faster, but not dramatically so. GPUs are powerful, but increasingly expensive. Many users are holding on to machines for longer than ever, either due to economic pressure or environmental concerns. Proprietary operating systems, however, continue to grow heavier, demanding more resources with each major update. Perfectly functional hardware is declared obsolete, not because it cannot perform tasks, but because it no longer fits the business model. The Linux distro that is winning understands this reality deeply. It is optimized for efficiency, capable of running smoothly on both modern high-end machines and older systems that would struggle under mainstream operating systems. Memory usage is controlled, background processes are minimal, and the system scales to the hardware rather than forcing the hardware to keep up. This is not about nostalgia or clinging to the past. It is about sustainability, accessibility, and respecting the user's investment. At the same time, this distro does not sacrifice modern capabilities. Wayland's support is mature. Hardware acceleration works out of the box. Power management on laptops rivals or exceeds proprietary systems. Gaming performance, once considered Linux's weakest point, is now competitive thanks to Vulkan, Proton, and native Linux support from major engines. In 2026, the question is no longer whether you can game, create, code, or work on Linux. The question is why you would accept the trade-offs of closed systems when Linux can do the same job without the baggage. AI is another battleground where this Linux distro gains a decisive advantage. While mainstream operating systems integrate AI as a cloud-first data-hungry feature, Linux offers a different path. Local-first AI is becoming increasingly important as models become more efficient and capable of running on consumer hardware. The winning Linux distro embraces this shift, integrating local AI tools that run entirely on the user's machine. Text generation, image processing, code assistance, and voice recognition can all operate without sending sensitive data to remote servers. This approach aligns perfectly with the growing desire for digital sovereignty. Governments, businesses, and individuals are realizing that relying on foreign cloud services for core functionality introduces risks that go far beyond privacy. Economic sanctions, policy changes, service shutdowns, and geopolitical tensions can all disrupt access to essential tools. A Linux distro that enables powerful AI capabilities locally offers resilience and independence that proprietary systems simply cannot match. Equally important is how this distro handles software distribution. Traditional app stores and proprietary ecosystems are increasingly restrictive, taking significant revenue cuts, enforcing arbitrary rules, and limiting what developers can do. In contrast, Linux's package management model remains one of its greatest strengths. In 2026, the winning distro combines traditional package managers with modern formats like Flatpak and containerized apps, offering both stability and flexibility. Users can install software from trusted repositories, third-party sources, or build it themselves, all without being locked into a single gatekeeper. This freedom is not just philosophical. It directly impacts innovation. Developers can experiment, distribute niche tools, and serve specialized communities without negotiating with a centralized authority. This is why Linux continues to dominate in fields like scientific computing, cybersecurity, DevOps, and embedded systems. The distro that is winning the OS wars understands that empowering developers ultimately empowers users, creating a virtuous cycle that closed ecosystems struggle to replicate. Security is another area where the advantage is becoming impossible to ignore. In a world of constant breaches, ransomware attacks, and zero-day exploits, security is no longer a premium feature. It is a baseline requirement. The winning Linux distro benefits from decades of hardened security practices, including strong permission models, rapid patching, and community-driven auditing. When vulnerabilities are discovered, fixes are often deployed in hours or days, not weeks or months. Moreover, the open nature of the system means security is not dependent on secrecy. This distro assumes that attackers can see the code and designs defenses accordingly. Mandatory access controls, sandboxing, secure boot integration, and disk encryption are standard, not optional add-ons. In 2026, when users are increasingly targeted, not just as individuals, but as data sources, this level of security becomes a major differentiator. But perhaps the most important reason this Linux distro will win the future is cultural rather than technical. It represents a different philosophy of computing, one that resonates strongly with the emerging generation of users. Younger users are growing up in a world where digital platforms feel exploitative, opaque, and manipulative. They are more skeptical of corporate narratives and more interested in tools that offer transparency and control. Open-source software, once seen as intimidating or niche, now aligns with values like collaboration, decentralization, and user empowerment. This distro understands that winning does not mean forcing users to become experts. It invests heavily in usability, documentation, and onboarding. Installation is straightforward. Hardware detection is automatic. The desktop environment is intuitive without being restrictive. Advanced features are available, but they do not get in the way of basic tasks. This balance is crucial. Linux does not win by demanding ideological purity. It wins by being genuinely better for real people in real situations. By 2026, enterprises are also taking notice. The cost of licensing proprietary operating systems, combined with increasing hardware requirements and cloud dependencies, is pushing organizations to reevaluate their strategies. The winning Linux distro offers long-term support, predictable update cycles, and professional backing without vendor lock-in. Companies can customize it to their needs, deploy it at scale, and retain full control over their infrastructure. This is particularly attractive in sectors like education, government, healthcare, and emerging markets, where budgets are tight and autonomy is critical. Even content creators, once firmly entrenched in proprietary ecosystems, are increasingly migrating. Video editing, audio production, 3D modeling, and graphic design tools on Linux have matured significantly. Combined with excellent hardware support and stable performance, this distro enables creators to work without worrying about forced updates, breaking workflows, or subscription models changing overnight. Ownership of tools and files becomes a reality again, not a marketing slogan. As the OS wars of 2026 unfold, it becomes clear that this is not about market share in the traditional sense. It is about influence. The Linux distro that is winning is shaping expectations. It is demonstrating that an operating system can be powerful without being invasive, modern without being wasteful, and innovative without being authoritarian. Even proprietary systems are responding, borrowing ideas and features pioneered in the open-source world, whether they admit it or not. In the end, the future is not owned by a single company or controlled by a single platform. It belongs to systems that respect users as participants rather than products. The Linux distro that will win the OS wars of 2026 is not winning because it defeated Windows or macOS outright. It is winning because it offers an answer to the question people are finally asking: what should a computer be in an age of AI, surveillance, and uncertainty? The answer, increasingly, is a system that is transparent, adaptable, and truly yours. And in that future, Linux is no longer the alternative. It is the standard.